And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, that podcast where we're a number, not free man, because this week we watched The Schizoid Man.
And by Terence Feely.
Directed by Pat Jackson.
And aired on October 27th, 1967.
This is my favorite episode of The Prisoner so far. I don't think it's even close.
Wow.
This is pretty much one of the greatest things of television, greatest episodes of television I've ever watched, in my opinion.
Wow. I don't even consider this in my top 5 for this show.
Wow.
We're drawing, I know I keep hinting at this, but I can't wait. We're drawing ever closer to my favorite episode, Dance of the Dead, which is episode 8.
Great. Can't wait to be underwhelmed.
I don't know if I mentioned this. I know I mentioned it to you off recording, but I don't know if I mentioned it on recording in the previous weeks. But I showed that episode to my cousin, and she fell asleep.
Yeah, that just gives me hope that I'm going to be underwhelmed.
This is a great episode, though. It's just not in my top. I just think there are other greater ones in this show, which just goes to show you how great this show is.
I think this episode's great just because you don't even know who Six is, really. I mean, sure, you could believe that black coat wearing Six is the real Six, but you could also believe that fake Six is the real Six, and nothing, in fact, would disprove that. Nothing would disprove that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you later on, but since we're already talking about it, were you confused as to who the real number 6 was throughout the episode? Because I was, the first time I watched this, I started questioning myself, like, wait, is this one, what?
No. They do kind of go to great effort to put the original number 6 as close to being the original number 6 as possible, with the same color jacket he's always worn, and the fact that he refuses to wear the number badge still.
Yeah, there is also that scene where you see the white coat number 6 and number 2 talking, and they're like, he's almost breaking, which I almost wish they didn't include that scene, just to add to the confusion. But the first time I watched this, yeah, I was very confused, and I started doubting whether the one that they telegraph as number 6 was really number 6 at all.
What if neither of them are number 6?
Yeah, that would be one of the sort of meta things that this show kind of does, of like, this was actually just a ruse for the viewer and not for anyone in the show.
The one thing that did make me question which was the real number 6 was that I was pretty sure the real number 6 was left-handed in previous weeks. So when they said, oh, number 6 is right-handed, so you'll need to be right-handed, I was like, hang on. Or they said number 6 is left-handed, so you'll need to pretend to be left-handed. But they turned the real 6 into being right-handed, which you find out later that's what they did. But right off the bat, he's right-handed, and I was like, but 6 is left-handed. So
yeah, there's definitely an element that Free For All actually touched on, of like turning what's real into something fake and vice versa. But we'll touch on that, I think, a little bit later.
Yeah.
Because before we even jump into this, I was really curious as to what the Prisoner font was. You know, the kind of the font that they use throughout the village.
You mean the font they probably created for the show?
Well, so I looked it up. They didn't create it for the show. It's a font called Albertus that was created in the early 1900s. And yeah, I'll put it in the show notes, but there's a very long article about the font and its history.
Oh boy.
And so apparently it's never been, I was like, oh cool, like maybe I can get this font and start using it. Apparently it's never been made available in a digital format, so it's only like on classic, like, you know, presses or whatever.
But I'm sure if you Google the Prisoner font, you'll find a digital version.
Apparently,
right?
I mean, I didn't like do any heavy digging beyond this article that was basically on the first page of Google, but what they said was that it's never been made digital, so I would assume.
I'm pretty sure I just found that exact article by Googling the Prisoner font,
yeah.
And it's the first result.
Yeah, so maybe there's a font that's very close to it but if they're right, then it's not available on computers. Which,
Wow, Futura shows up a couple of times.
anyway, this article, like near the end of it, starts going into like, but what could it all mean that they use this font? And I was like, oh, cool, like we're about to go into some like theories and stuff like that. But it's actually just a very long section that winds up saying, well, we have no idea.
Much like the rest of the show, I guess.
But apparently they do take some liberties with the font. They created their own version of some of the letters, so it's not exactly Albertus as the creators of Albertus originally created it.
They do provide here a font sheet that they would have used to create these type settings, the monotype. In theory, you could digitize this somewhat easily. If I wanted to be a hero to the prisoner community, I guess I could do that myself and then probably get sued by the creator of Albertus. Be like, hey, you just basically stole my work. And I'd be like, sorry.
Just change like a very few like things, and then you can do that. Look, I just downloaded like a not Helvetica font that's like exactly that's not what it's called. I don't even remember what it's called, but it's like it's because I wanted Helvetica, but you have to buy Helvetica, and I don't know how to like pirate fonts, and I wouldn't even do it anyway, even if I did know.
Is there like a big font piracy market? Like, is that a thing?
I'm sure it is.
I wouldn't pirate fonts either because I don't support that, but is that a thing?
I'm sure it is. Fonts are pretty expensive, like the official ones that people really like to use.
So what, you downloaded like not Helvetica?
Well, it's like that's not what it's called. I just said that, but like it's I don't remember the name, but it's like it's almost exactly like Helvetica, and there's like barely any difference.
What did you need Helvetica for?
I just wanted it.
Does Windows not come with Helvetica installed?
I don't think so.
Oh, Mac comes with Helvetica.
Oh, nice. I don't have any like I just use Google Docs, so like I don't have any writing software other than like Notepad on my computer.
Does Google Docs support like fonts you have installed on your computer?
GIMP does.
Oh, well, okay, that makes sense.
Not that I even really use GIMP that much anymore because it sucks. But anyway, we're completely off focus here.
I've been designing a website for myself, and I had to make the difficult choice of what font families I would use for my website to make it look decent. Maybe I should swap it to Albertus. Maybe I should digitize Albertus and put my website in Albertus. Anyway,
some production stuff. The production for this episode began in December 1966, so almost a full year before it aired.
Mm-hmm.
Other tidbits. Apparently, this is the first episode to name Rover, and number 6 says the name.
And according to Wikipedia, the last episode in which Rover is named as well, like the only episode in which Rover is named.
Yeah, so according to Anorak Zone says it's the first. Like, that's what their statement is. Like, this is the first episode where we get Rover's name. It doesn't say whether or not it's the last. It might just be like a misleading way of saying it's the only time by saying it's the first. So we'll have to see if Rover ever gets a name drop in any of the other episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, what order Anorak Zone didn't explain what order they were watching in to have this be the first.
Oh, Anorak Zone's got their own order.
Oh boy!
That if you go to the prisoner section on their website, they've got like their own order laid out. So that if you go through the pages on the prisoner on the Anorak Zone, you would go through them in the order that they would have watched them in. So that's how you would know what they mean by first.
Huh.
So there you go. Apparently the Schizoid Man is a reference to schizoid personality disorder, which is a cluster A personality disorder. Symptoms include pervasive emotional detachment, lack of close friends, apathy, unintentional insensitivity to social norms, asexuality, preoccupation with fantasy, and autistic thinking, but without the loss of skill to recognize reality.
Yeah, a lot of those are just describing number 6. Like more than half of the things you just mentioned.
Treatment not yet studied, so that's interesting.
Yeah, it's also close to schizophrenia, which is, I guess, more severe because then you do have the hallucinations and such.
Yeah, there's the cause of SPD is uncertain, but there's some evidence of links and shared genetic risk between SPD and other cluster A personality disorders, but as well as schizophrenia. So SPD is considered a schizophrenia-like personality disorder.
Yeah, so there, like many episodes, there are a couple removed scenes from this episode. There was supposed to be a buggy chase. There's supposed to be some montages, apparently. I don't know what those would have entailed. And there's supposed to be a chess scene. All of those got cut.
Ha! Get wrecked, the prisoner. The episode does kind of just end, which makes you think, like, I wonder if there was more.
Well, maybe they were running over on time and they were just like, just cut it there. Just, end it.
I found the prisoner font on dafont.com. There's an ancient website, but anyway.
Dafont is still pretty widely used.
Anyway, yeah, back to the point. Like, it just kind of ends, which I was going to say was evidence to the fact that maybe a lot more was cut than is evident. It just ran out of time.
Yeah, I think this is one of the funniest endings and one of the funniest losses for number 6 because he almost gets out.
Then he just gets wrecked.
If he had been a little, and you could tell at the end he was trying to be very vague with his answers to brush under the rug the fact that he didn't know what he was talking about, but if he had just been like a little more vague, he would have made it out.
Unfortunately, he wasn't vague enough.
Yeah. Anyway, I guess we should just jump right into what happens in the episode.
Yeah, let's just jump right in.
The episode opens in number 6's house, and he's part of a little mind reading act.
Yeah, but before that, I guess every week I'm just noticing something new about this intro. Because this week it was, if he was worried about being chased after resigning, why didn't he pack his suitcase before he resigned?
Did he? What makes you think he was worried about getting chased?
The fact that he immediately goes home and frantically starts packing like he's in a rush.
Oh, maybe. I thought he was just going to go on his little vacation or whatever that he had planned.
But then there would be no rush. He could have just gone home, made a cup of tea, sat down.
Maybe he was about to miss his flight.
But then that would have even been more evidence why didn't he pack before he handed in his resignation?
Look, I don't know. Number 6 is a very scatterbrained person, so...
6 is a really, really bad spy. Which is why I still think he's a barber.
Yeah, probably just a barber for like the world's top secret agents.
We can't let you stop cutting our hair. Who else is going to cut our hair, number 6?
Well, that would actually make sense because he won't tell anyone why he resigned no matter what, even though it's making his life way, way harder than it otherwise would be. So you can keep a secret. So...
And who else do you tell all your secrets to but your barber?
Yeah, exactly.
What
cracked?
What if there isn't a reason why he resigned? What if the reason is just I just wanted to, but the reason why he doesn't tell anyone is because he's embarrassed that if he does that they'll be like, really? Really? So he just pretends like there's a big mystery to it, but in reality it was just like, oh, I just wanted to resign. No reason. Well,
I don't think it's a spoiler to say this. Both because of we were already kind of there and because I just don't think it's a spoiler. But like, it almost doesn't even matter why he resigned. The point isn't like finding out the actual reason. The point is like this organization trying to invade every little bit of privacy and every little bit of what was once humanity that everyone has and destroy all of that.
Yeah, no, the quote point unquote in so much as there is a point isn't necessarily why did number 6 resign. It's how are they trying to find out why number 6 resigned. But I still think it's funny to speculate about.
Yeah. He just wanted a raise and he couldn't get it.
They didn't give it to him, so he's like, well, I'm done.
Anyway, yeah, number 6 is practicing, number 24 is practicing some mind reading and some Where's Waldo cosplay.
Well, so the fact that she's number 24 is like really weird from the point of view that number 6 is the main character, and then in this episode we have the fake number 6, and then number 6 becomes number 12, and then there's number 24. So 12 is double 6 and 24 is double 12.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was Interact Zone or one of the other sites I read for this, but one of them pointed out, like, 12, there plays with the whole idea of, like, a double. 12 is the double of 6.
Yeah. But then the 24 is the double of 12 is also...
Yeah, maybe hinting that she's, in fact, in on the plan the entire time.
Mm-hmm. I this is getting ahead of ourselves, but I got the impression that she didn't actually have any sort of psychic link. I kind of got the impression that she was being fed the what the card was through like an earpiece or something, even though there's not really anything to indicate that except the fact that I feel like they faked her psychic thing.
There's definitely, they don't come they don't come right out and say it, but there's definitely like a very heavy indication that she's part of the plan and she has no psychic abilities and is just there to do the thing that they do later with both of them trying to, help her practice with the cards or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, right now she gets all because number 6 is holding up these little cards with symbols on them and she's guessing the symbols without looking at the cards. She's also about to enter like a photography contest. And, some more Patrick McGowan egomania for you. She takes a couple like pictures of him.
While doing so, she knocks over this like bottle that somehow causes the like most damage to someone's hand that a seemingly plastic bottle falling over could ever do, which is like it scrapes up like the bottom of the nail where it connects to his hand and it gets all like bloody, and I'm like, how is that even possible? But you know what, science fiction, so I'll go with it. But still,
I thought it just jammed in the nail.
It doesn't. Okay, even still, the actual shot of it falling, it comes like nowhere close to his hand.
Okay. Just accept it. It's not a big
Patrick
deal.
McGowan like pulls back like it really hurt him, and I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. You know what? Sure.
Yeah, just more of that classic Patrick McGowan egomania.
I mean, he started in an episode where he got to play himself twice, so...
Yeah, and he didn't write this one, but he wrote a lot of them. Not a lot of them, but...
Wasn't it 2 of them?
A number. It's like 2 or 3.
That's like 1/6, 17 episodes.
Still,
most 6th through 9th.
Most lead actors write 0 episodes of the show they're in. So, and don't create the show that they're in.
I don't know if the most actors write 0 is true.
Really, you think most actors write at least 1 episode of the show that they star in?
If they're the main character. Or, well...
I don't, like, does Jodie Whittaker get a chance to write Doctor Who? Like, I don't think so.
Well, I don't know. We're coming at it from a very twisted point of view where we're only thinking of the shows that we've watched, but, like, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, Days of Our Lives had an episode written by some random character who acts in the show, right? Like... There were literally hundreds of television shows we haven't watched, so to actually find this statistic out, like, there'd have to be a lot of research done. I do, however, think that most actors direct an episode of the show they star on. That I do think is true.
Huh. Well, I have no idea. I would be really surprised if it was true that, like, most actors write an episode of their own show or the show that they star on.
Maybe.
But, yeah, I have no idea.
A lot of the television shows I watch outside of for the podcast have an episode directed by like one of the actors in the episode. NCIS has one directed by like each of the main cast at least has had a turn at going at it.
You watch NCIS outside of the podcast?
Yeah, wow, shocking. Star Trek even did it. Oh, like LeVar Burton, Jonathan Frakes, they've all directed episodes of the shows they starred in.
Star Trek had an episode called The Schizoid Man, which I was typing in Schizoid Man on Wikipedia to find the article for this episode, and it was coming up as a Star Trek episode. So maybe playing off of this and inspired by this, I don't know.
Which one is... Which Star Trek? Oh, it's Next Generation. It was named after the Prisoner episode, according to what I just saw right now.
Yeah.
As the role of Dr. Ira Graves was originally slated to be played by Patrick McGoohan.
Huh. Yeah, that's the thing, is like Patrick McGoohan, everything he's ever made, whether it was before or after The Prisoner, is just like somehow related to The Prisoner. He just rode the wave of this one idea for like his entire life. That's actually not true. He did a lot of Disney stuff that's probably not all that related to this. Except of the fact that like the fakeness and like facade of Disney is somehow... I was actually thinking about this recently when I was looking at some footage of how like Disney World is now reopened and people are wearing masks there and stuff. People are like, man, Disney World is like a dystopia now. And I was thinking like, man, like, you know that Main Street Disneyland? That's kind of like a dystopia. It's like a covert dystopia in a way. Like, I don't know.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a dystopian utopia, shall we say?
Yeah. So the for anyone who doesn't know, the Disneyland that's here in California, the original Disneyland, has this Main Street area, which is supposed to look like this, I don't know, fictionalized version of like this mythical like 1950s America. Mm-hmm. It's really damn weird. It's like really damn weird and really uncomfortable to be in.
Yeah, it's the American themed section of Disneyland.
Yeah, but it's like it's a fake it's actually, I think the book Simulation and Simulacra or whatever it's called, Simulacra and Simulation, actually talks about Disneyland, and it talks about the Main Street. So maybe I'm subconsciously drawing from when I read portions of that years ago, but like it's almost like simulacra or whatever that concept is. Like it's a simulation of a simulation. Like it's a fake, but it's based on a fake.
Yeah, well, I don't have anything else to say on it.
Look, all of Disneyland is very uncomfortable to be in, but that's the most uncomfortable part.
Only if you think about it too much. If you play into the fantasy, it's fine.
I don't know. I just get really uncomfortable there.
You're not playing into the fantasy, Keon. Be happy. Buy merchandise. Eat churros.
Eat $15 churros.
Hell yeah. Is this about the time I tell the story that, like, not the last time I went to Disneyland, but the time before that, we were there and we forgot to eat dinner, and then, like, by the time we realized we hadn't eaten anything, we were hungry, and the only place that was open was the beignet place in the New Orleans quarter, so we were like, let's go get some beignets, and that was my dinner. It was, like, overpriced, not super great, Mickey Mouse head-shaped beignets. Good times. Good times.
Well, don't talk to number 6 about nutritional value, because he throws out some probably fairly nutritious, if eaten in moderate portions, food for flapjacks later on with some nice lemon slices on top.
So 6 goes to sleep and they kidnap him.
they use the hypno lamp again. I guess, you know, whether this one takes...
Sorry, the hypno lamp.
Well, okay, so whether this one takes place before A, B, and C or after, like, he comes to this thing once without realizing it.
Just use this to hypnotize him into telling them why he resigned. When the hypno lamp came down, my note is, we're going to give him a hairstyling while he sleeps, because it looks like one of those little things you put over your head to dry it while you're dyeing your hair.
Oh my god, yeah, you're right. I was thinking about this recently. Like, if I was number 2, if I was in charge of finding out why number 6 resigned, and I had the chance to be the first number 2 that number 6 encountered, I would, number 1, not even kidnap him. I would just wait a long time and let him go about his daily life, and then slip a secret agent into his life and covertly, like, have them be someone he trusts and reveal why he resigned without making a big deal about it. And then as soon as he did that, kidnap him and bring him to the village.
But then what's the point of being in the village?
So he can't tell anyone else. Yeah. Because the reason why he won't tell them is because they're making such a big deal about it. And he probably wouldn't tell anyone else to begin with, but like you have a better chance if you don't play it up and make it like a big thing.
Well, see, if I was the first number 2, I would kidnap him, and then I would just gaslight him into thinking the whole rest of his life was a dream, and he's actually always been in the village for his whole life. Instead of doing what the number 2 did in Arrival, where he's like, this is the village, and over there's the food, and over there that's Rover, though he doesn't call it Rover, I would be like, morning number 6, and he'd be like, where am I? And I'd be like, you've always been your number 6. You've lived here your whole life. What are you talking about? And then I'll just have...
number 6, you joker.
Number 6, you absolute unit. What are you joking about today? And then I would just convince him that he's lived in the village his whole life. I would make no indication that I wanted to know why he resigned until I convinced him he lived here his whole life. But while doing that, I would just draw out elements of his, quote, dream, unquote, which is his actual life. And then maybe he'll just tell me. Once he believes that it was all a dream and it doesn't matter, he'll just tell me. And I'll be like, wow, thanks.
Wow, thanks, but I didn't even want to know.
Wow, thanks, but yeah, by the way, I was lying. Actually, you didn't live in the village, and I'd just break his mind. He would probably have a mental breakdown if I did that to him.
Yeah, sorry, I just spoiled the actual ending of the show where he reveals why he resigned, and number 2 is just like, oh, well, we actually didn't even
Number
want to
2
know.
is just like, it was all just a game. Like, I mean, the game was to find out, and you've ruined it now.
It was just a prank, bro.
In Fallout, they just drop him back into his regular life. It was just a prank, bro. And they leave.
Just ruin this guy's life and like not millions, but dozens, if not hundreds of other people's lives for the sake of pranking number 6.
Just a prank, bro. So they kidnap him, and then we see this quick little test where they have this electrical prod, and they try to poke him, and he slaps it away and shocks himself. And they're like, left-handed or whatever, or right-handed or whatever they say.
Yeah, you don't really know what that means yet either. But then number 6 wakes up, and lo and behold, he has the same power as Steel from Sapphire and Steel, where he can just grow a mustache in minutes.
Except it's really like overnight.
No. Yeah, it's overnight. Well, supposedly. It's actually been, however long, weeks or...
I question why they left the mustache on him at first. But then later I was like, oh, they probably wanted to add to the validity of him not being number 6, so he's got the mustache.
Right, because what happens is that he wakes up and he notices the mustache and he notices he's in a different room and he's like, what's going on? And he gets a call from number 2 calling him to the Green Dome.
And he's like, hey, you're number 12 now. Well, first he waits to see what he chooses for dinner, for breakfast. Dinner? What the hell? What he decides to choose for breakfast, and he watches very closely as he goes and he finds the flapjacks. He's like, flapjacks. Number 2's like, yeah, well, we did call you Flapjack Charlie. And I'm like, Charlie?
Yeah, they just revealed number 6's name casually. No, so what this is supposed to be is that this number 2's plan, I guess, is that he wants to trick number 6 into believing he's not number 6, and that he's in fact number 12, whose job is to impersonate number 6
Yeah, except it's a lot more brilliant than that because he actually explains his entire plan to number 6, but number 6 doesn't piece together that it's his plan right now because he goes, so we've brought you in to convince number 6 that he's not actually number 6, and by convincing him that he's not actually number 6, that's how we'll break him because we don't want to kill him, and my superiors want him intact, but we do need to break him. And that's like actually what he's doing to number 6, but he's telling number 6 that that's what he's going to be doing.
I always got the impression that number 6 knew exactly what he was doing. Did you like not see it that way?
No.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, obviously later on, number 6 realizes the like, I don't even know what you call it, the conditioning that he's had to go through, and the whole haircut thing and the shaving the beard and stuff. But I always thought that he knew exactly what was going on. And
he has a line that I guess you could read to see that implies that he knows, because he says something like, well, that's what you could be doing to me, and number 2 goes, ha, no, you're number 12. You're the one convincing the other guy, and 6 goes, well, all right.
So just to be clear, you thought that the real number 6 actually did think he was number 12?
Not at that moment, but I don't think at that moment he thought he was actually number 12, but I do think that he didn't realize or piece together at that moment that that's what they were doing to him. I think he thought that number 2 was just having him convince this other guy he wasn't number 6 because he's not number 6. But I don't think he realized that number 2 actually dropped his whole plan on number 6 at that moment. I think he realizes it later, but I don't think he realizes it then.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think many people have that interpretation of it, because I never did, and like the blogs that I read again for this week didn't seem to go about it that way, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, fair enough.
Anyway, he goes to number 6's house, his house, and there's even more mind-bending like stuff where number 6 realizes some slight differences. Like he picks up a statue and he's like, this should be gold, not silver, or something like that. And number 2 is like, you better not say that when number 6 comes around, because he has a very discerning eye. Which, again, this is another instance of like he's talking about him. But yeah, This episode is so mind-bending. But weirdly enough, this isn't the most mind-bending episode of The Prisoner. There's another episode coming up that is in a few ways similar to this, that is just like, what the hell? And it's great.
My favorite.
Anyway, the fake number 6 comes in, and he's played by none other than Patrick McGoohan.
Yeah, well, in face shots, but there's a lot of shots where it's clearly just the back of the stunt double or / body double's head. And I looked up who plays his double. I don't know if you did, but it's this guy named Frank Mayer, spelled Maher, and he was actually the stunt coordinator for Blake 7 for 9 episodes.
Oh wow!
So he plays number 6's double in this episode, allegedly, according to IMDb. Anyway.
So the number 6 that walks in, they give you like a big visual cue as to which is our number 6 and which isn't. Unless you want to like have a theory that like the number 6 that we see here and that we follow for the rest of the show is actually not the real number 6, which and that the real number 6 actually dies in the episode.
I just like the idea that all the technology in this episode just reinforces my theory that the timeline resets every week and it's just another attempt to break number 6 completely unrelated.
Yeah, that's a different number 6 every single week.
Yeah.
What if they like cloned Patrick McGoohan? What if like the actual actor himself as part of this story and have just like a cache of clones that they're calling number 6?
Wow.
And are continually
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I guess you could also theorize that like the real number 6 dies in this episode, and the guy that we see for the rest of the episode is not the real number 6, but has been convinced that he was the real number 6 who number 2 had attempted to convince that he wasn't the real number 6.
It's just Curtis.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. And that, like, from here on out, there actually is no way that he could tell them why he resigned, because he himself doesn't know.
He's like, I don't know. And they're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, not even number 2 knows. Everyone's tricked into thinking it's... Oh, man. God. That's possible. That's the craziest part, is, like, that's totally possible.
This is Curtis's greatest spy moment, is that he's so perfectly taken on this role that not even number 2 realizes the wrong number 6 died.
That not even he himself realizes that he's not number 6. Oh my god. And this isn't just some wild theory either. I think this relates to the themes of the show, even if it's not right. Even if there's no way you can prove whether it's right or wrong type thing.
Except for that stupid mole thing.
Oh, yeah. True. Damn you, physiology.
I have so many questions about the mole thing, but I'll bring them up when we get there. So, 12... The real number 6 is given this password, Gemini, except Patrick McGowan says it Gemini.
Yeah, I've been so confused over that the few times that I've watched the episode of like, did he just say the password incorrectly? Like, did he pronounce it wrong and that's why they're trying to beat him up? But no, that's not the reason.
No, it's just an alternate pronunciation of the word.
Yeah. Gemini also is a constellation. It's the twins, so there you go.
Yeah, it's twins. Wow, how original. Woo.
Yep.
Wow, you've got twins and you use the word Gemini. Wow. Woo, applause. Wow. Gemini is also the what number star sign is it out of, because there were 12 there are 12 star symbols. You know what I'm saying?
Wikipedia. No, not Gemini.
Oh, it's the third. Gemini is the third astrological sign in the zodiac.
Yep.
Which is weirdly enough 1/2 of 6. I don't think that was intentional, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, so you have 3, 6, 12, and 24.
Yeah. Huh.
Oh man, the zodiac symbol for it is also a 2. It looks like a Roman numeral 2.
Yeah. Because it's twins. Wow, you used Gemini when you had twins in the episode. Wow, so original.
Oh,
I did notice.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I was just going to say it has a mutable zodiac quality. I don't know what that means, but it sounds cool.
Well, what does that mean?
Well, let's Wikipedia. In astrology, mutable signs are associated with adaptability, flexibility, and sympathy. These signs mediate change and change their modes of expression frequently in order to meet this end, and they are often described as being diplomatic and assisting others through transitions.
So I did notice that most of the background numbers we see in this episode have the number 6 in them somehow, with few exceptions. Because we see 263, 36, 269, 106, 256, and then we also see 180, 249, and 101. But most of their background numbers we see in this episode, weirdly enough, have the number 6 in their number somehow.
Mm-hmm.
That probably doesn't mean anything. Or maybe it does. I don't know. For you to decide. And by you, I mean the audience. Not like you, Keon, unless you want to decide right now for everyone.
Imagine if there was like a choose-your-own-adventure book for the prisoner.
Just
every
ending ends with you just getting through because you're not being able to leave the village.
Yeah, exactly. Every single ending ends with a screenshot of that Patrick McGowan's face with the bars over it. There's no way out.
I'd like half the endings to point to a page that just says Rover captures you and you wake up in your bed again, and then a screen cap of that. Just half the endings just go to that same page.
Or yeah, they all end with like going back to page 1. Like there's no ending that doesn't end with it going back to the intro sequence.
Whoa.
But every ending does have a blank line that you can write in why you resigned.
Now every ending, or every page that would lead to the ending, should have an option where you could be like, tell them why you resign, and it takes you to this one page. It's just a blank line where you can write in why you resigned, and then just even that ending also says go back to page 1, begin anew.
Why has no one done this? Oh, okay. Oh man, so this is weirdly related. You know how we were talking about how, like, according to those CST Online articles, like, order doesn't matter, or like, you know.
Well, according to Andrew Pixley's assertion.
Yeah, according to Andrew Pixley. So there's this book by, it's by Julio Cortázar, who's a Argentinian writer, who lived long ago, who I really like. And he has this novel called Hopscotch, which is basically choose your own adventure before choose your own adventure, but it's long. And there's like, I forget what it is, but he had like 2 or 3 different ways you could read it. And apparently it works every way that you read it. Like it works as a coherent story, which is really impressive and insane. So like one order is just like you read it page 1 to the last page, just like a normal book. The other order is like you read certain parts in like a certain order. So like you read part 1, then you read part 3, and then part 2, or like I'm just making that up, but like that's how it kind of works. Mm-hmm. And then like the third and craziest way is like a choose your own adventure book, where he gives like little things like, go, if you're reading it in order number 3, then go start on page 1 and then go to page like 300 and then go to page 7. Apparently it works no matter which way you read it as a story.
Wow.
Which is I haven't read it, so I don't know that for a fact, but that's just what I've read online. That's
crazy, because you have to publish it in a very specific way then to make that work, right?
Yeah, and I'm really surprised that this was a book that was published in Argentina, because the reason why the Argentinian short story is like the most famous format from that country is because paper was like really expensive. So like if you wanted to write something long, you probably weren't going to get a deal or weren't going to get it published. But if you wanted to write like a 1-page story, then like you could easily get that published. So that's why authors like Borges and such often wrote like a lot of short stories.
Huh.
Yeah.
Weird.
So crazy that like not only is this a super long novel, but that he was even able to get this weird idea published as a long novel to begin with. Huh. But yeah, if you want a mind-bending experience, check that out. I haven't, read even a single word of it, but it sounds pretty cool.
For a real mind-bending experience, we could listen to the audio dramas based on the show that sometimes adapt scripts from the show in a slightly different way.
Oh, God. Playing again into the multiple like timelines / universes thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you like actually looked at those after Keith recommended them to us on Twitter, but I went and looked at them on Big Finish, and yeah, like the first box set includes like a reinterpretation of Free For All as like the second story. Or the third story. They adapt like 5 or 6 scripts from the show for that audio series.
Yeah, I'm really starting to think we should do a Prisoner expanded universe season where we listen to those audios and read that comic we were talking about, and
off
maybe
recording.
Off recording, and maybe watch the reboot as all part of a single season.
Prisoner season 2.
Yeah. But anyway, we're way off topic.
Way off topic.
So number 6 and the other number 6 decide to...
The real number 6 and the fake number 6, and Curtis.
Yeah, Curtis, I think, is the easiest way to refer to him and have it be clear. They decide to have some competitions to see who the real number 6 is.
The first of which is shooting.
Yeah.
And number 6 just completely bombs this. Just completely fails.
He doesn't completely fail. He's at least hitting the targets, but he's not as good as Curtis.
He's not hitting that 90% rate that he's supposed to have. Okay, he has a line here where he's like, that won't it won't match my Olympic average. And one of the blogs I was reading, might have been Anorak Zone, might have been another one, was like, this line seems to imply that number 6 was like an Olympic athlete, which is weird because Nadia was also an Olympic athlete, so wouldn't they know each other somehow, or at least know of each other? Because you would think they would be aware of medal-winning athletes.
Isn't that just a saying, like my Olympic average? As like, you're not going to match my really good
I've never
skill.
heard that saying before, but if it is, then sure. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the only place I've heard it is the previous 2 times I watched this episode. I don't know. But remember back in Star Cops when behind-the-scenes shenanigans forced them to give Theroux and what's her name the same exact backstory?
Kenzie?
Yeah, Kenzie. Can't believe I forgot her name.
Pal Kenzie.
Yeah.
When in the one episode, Pal was like, "Oh yeah, I was a student, like a student revolutionary," and it's like, "Wait a minute, wasn't Theroux that as well?"
Yeah, because
that's honestly the best thing to come out of that show is the fact that just because of weird behind-the-scenes shenanigans, they ended up with identical backstories.
But yeah, they move on to a fencing competition.
And it goes okay. This set is actually the one I mentioned on Trust Your Doctor a couple weeks ago now as being the like weirdest reuse of the command room set, because if you look at the top of the frame, the walls of the room they're in just like end, and then there's no roof, and then you can see the like blue dome above the walls.
Oh wow, I did not notice
of the room. So like this room was clearly constructed inside the blue dome.
Yeah, wow. What this is supposed to be, though, is the village like recreation center, which is, I think, the first time I've seen it, but it's not the last. There's some really funny scenes that happen in here later on.
Oh, heck yeah. So they fence, and Curtis wins. Duh. Because they're forcing number 6 to do everything in his offhand.
Well, I also thought the thing behind this was that like number 6 actually isn't that good at these things, and part of the ruse is that he's supposed to be, but he's not.
Maybe, but I think he is normally that good, but he was made bad because they trained him to be right-handed, and now they're forcing him to go back to being left-handed.
Yeah, I think that's what it is as well. Now that I reevaluate and rewatch. Rewatch and reevaluate, I guess. Anyway, as soon as they get outside, number 6 makes some snide comment, and Curtis is like, "Well, yeah? How about
Let's
I
go.
just punch the daylights out of you?"
So they go
buddy.
for it. They start boxing. Curtis bemoans that number 6 needs to choose whether he's orthodox or southpaw, and
number 6 loses again.
Number 6 gets the shit beat out of him.
A, B, and C was the only episode where we saw it raining in the village, but this episode clearly takes place during a rainy week because the ground is all muddy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, also,
there really is nothing to say to that.
there
No
really
response
isn't.
you could-
There really isn't. But one of the blogs I read tried to like discern what year the Prisoner must take place in for there to be a Wednesday, February 10th, because we should mention that they keep resetting the calendars to February 10th every single day in this story, and so they were like, well, it's either 65 or 71, because those are the two Wednesday the 10ths that are closest to when this aired. And then they were like, well, 6 saying he'd like to be the first man on the moon a couple weeks ago would seem to indicate that this would have to be 65 because the moon landing happened in 69. But then it was like, but then again, in the timeline of the show, the showrunners had no way of knowing the moon landing would have happened in 69, so it's still possible this could take place in 71.
Or maybe number 6 just doesn't know about it.
6 is so isolated from the world outside, he has no idea. Sure, why not?
Or maybe this is actually all taking place in like 3067, and like everyone has already forgotten about the past.
I guess the time loop reset. There's a kind of scene before 6 gets beat up when and before they actually go to the competition, where 2 and his coordinator number 106 are watching. Not his coordinator, what's he credited as? Supervisor. Are watching, and 2 goes, he's really like taking on this identity. And at this point in time, it's like it could go either way. It could be 6 taking on the identity of 12, taking on the identity of 6, or it could be Curtis taking on the identity of 6. But then the supervisor says this line, in Haiti, we should say he had stolen his soul. And I was like, yikes.
Apparently there's a ton of references to like religion and spirituality in this episode, which I didn't pick up on at all.
Yeah, that's the only one I would have picked up on.
A couple blogs that I read, I think, kind of had a few references, but I don't even remember what they were because I totally didn't pay attention to it, and I guess didn't even really care while I was reading it.
Amazing. So anyway, number 6 starts screaming that he is number 6. He says, I am number 6, I am 6, I am 6.
I'm not a free man, I'm a number.
This is the first time that 6 has called himself number 6, I think.
If I remember correctly, it's one of the last.
So I guess they do kind of break number 6 a little bit.
Yeah. But anyway, number 6 goes in, he's called in by number 2 to have a test, I guess. If I remember correctly, they go there to have this test. And I think the first one they do is fingerprints.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to look through my notes here.
Yeah, they do the fingerprints first. Because apparently they wouldn't be able to fake the fingerprints, I guess. But anyway.
Fingerprints are fairly... this episode has a lot of the, like, 1960s sci-fi stuff that isn't like really sci-fi anymore. Like, for example, the electronic guns and stuff was, like, I guess probably really cool back then, but now it's just like, who cares?
I still think they're cool.
All right. Fingerprints.
They're playing Time Crisis.
What was the one from Back to the Future? The lone gunman or whatever it was?
Oh, yeah. Like the lone gunman or something. Yeah.
Anyway, fingerprints being, like, known about and used was only, like, discovered at the end of the 1800s. So, like, not that old when this came out. And that's the thing, too, of, like, nowadays, things like, for example, a helicopter. You see a helicopter in this episode. Nowadays, helicopters aren't anything weird. And they're, 100 plus years old, I guess. But, like, back then, it was like, this stuff was not actually that old. Like, there were people probably alive at this time who, like, in their childhood, like, that didn't even exist.
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy to think about, like, in that 1940s, 50s, 60s era of, like, just how much people's lives had changed from when they were a child to if they were an adult at that time.
Yeah. It's very 1960s sci-fi.
Yeah.
Retro sci-fi.
Yeah, so I feel like the fingerprints are part of that, too. There's a book by Mark Twain called Pudd'nhead Wilson, which weirdly deals with, like, people disguising themselves as other people and stuff in, like, a really weird way. But yeah, well, there's it takes place during slavery, and there's a slave in the book who is so light-skinned that she has to dress in blackface to disguise herself as a slave, which is just, like, its own, like, you can write a million pages just about that one, like, chapter of the book where that happens. But hey, in that book they use fingerprints to decide, like, a court case, and that was, like, apparently real revolutionary at the time.
Yeah, fingerprints was one of those big revolutions in forensic science. because it allowed for a lot more convictions, because you could prove that someone was at the crime scene. You couldn't necessarily obviously use it to be like, oh, they did it. But if you found someone's fingerprints on a knife or like at the crime scene when they said they weren't there, that like immediately breaks down their story.
I'm sure people got it pinned on them, like, yeah, they did it, considering how corrupt like court cases are.
Well, also fingerprints are not a foolproof method. There's actually like problems with fingerprinting as a method, because when you compare two fingerprints, sometimes it can be really subjective as to whether or not the fingerprints are the same or not. Because when you fingerprint someone, you get perfect prints, but if you pull a fingerprint off of something, it'll be at an oblique angle, or it'll be, it won't be a full print, it'll be a partial print. And so like a partial print can match a lot of different full prints. So there's like still a lot of problems with it even today, which is why it's been, where possible, superseded by DNA evidence, which that still too also has its own problems, but less so than fingerprinting.
Well, here they just trick number 6 by like doctoring the image or something.
Yeah, but even like if they didn't doctor the image, it's like, you really think they wouldn't just be able to just like actually modify his fingerprint? I mean, they surgically modified this guy to look exactly like him. You think they would be so lazy to not do his fingerprints as well? Like, well, come on.
Come to think of it, we don't even know if they surgically modified him. Maybe he's just like a complete double and just happens to look exactly like number 6 and happens to be like a spy working for them.
Just a literal duplicate.
Yeah.
It's like a Sidney Carton and Charles Darnay kind of thing.
Maybe it's one of the Patrick McGowan clones that they pulled out of their closet. But anyway, they trick number 6. The image that he looks at is at least this is how I interpreted it. I think this scene is a little confusing. But how I always saw this was like the image number 6 looks at is doctored to have the fingerprints be the same.
Yeah.
Whereas the image that Curtis sees is different. I think that's what this is all about. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Either way, they kind of just discard this and move on to the psychic test, because they call number 24 in, even though she's just about to wash her hair.
Oh no. Oh no.
And they do the thing that number 6 was doing at the beginning. The real number 6 tries to pair with number 24 and have her guess the cards, because they apparently have a psychic link, but she gets most of them wrong. And then she does the same thing with Curtis and gets all of them right.
Yeah, they do runs of 5, and with 6 she gets 4 of them wrong, and with Curtis she gets 5 out of 5. Right. But then she's like, there's another way we could have told. Number 6 has a mole on his left arm.
Right. She's very condescending when she says this, by the way. She's just like, there's another way we could have done this, right? You dumbasses.
Well, she's being like that to like beat the real number 6 down even more, to make him question his like judgment. Yeah. Especially so when he rolls up his sleeve, he's like, oh shoot, there isn't a mole. And I'm like, hold up, it has to have been at least one day since you've taken this job. You didn't like get in the shower and go, hang on a sec, where's my mole?
People don't like look over their entire body like every single day.
But it's like on your left, it's on his left wrist.
That's something you could easily like, well, both for the purposes of the story and if you're talking in realistic terms, that's like an easy thing to overlook, like a very easy one.
Is it? I used to have a scar on my left wrist, and I noticed it every day while it faded.
Well, maybe you just pay more attention than most people. I don't know.
But my other question is, like, why even go through the effort of, like, taking number 6's mole off and then, like, putting a fake mole on Curtis? Like, could have just left his mole on, would have probably had the same impact. They just wouldn't have been able to use it as a method to identify them. And in fact, the mole is, like, how number 6 realizes that, or proves that Curtis is really fake, because he just basically rips the mole off of Curtis's arm because it's fake.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't the best thought out part of the plan. Guess they could have just left it out. Just goes to show you how nonchalant and relaxed this number 2 is compared to some of the other ones, and how he really only wins on like a little fluke, a little tiny mistake that number 6 makes.
He is the most self-confident of all the number 2s so far.
But also like the worst at doing his... Not well, maybe he's not the worst. I don't know.
I think he's far from the worst. He got number 6 to say, "I am 6," and I'd say that's pretty big, I'd say.
Yeah, number 6 almost got away under his watch.
Did he though?
Yep. He almost did.
And not any further than any of the other times.
He was on a helicopter to be escorted like away from the village.
Before he even got on that helicopter though, number 2 knew. Though.
He knew, but I'm pretty sure, like, he was definitely suspicious. He was definitely very suspicious, but it was the line about Susan that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, and that was before he got on the helicopter.
Yeah, but I think if number 6 had not said that line, then he would have gotten away scot-free. I think if he just been a little more
I think he knew
vague.
because there's no way they didn't investigate Curtis's body after he got attacked by Rover and realized that was like the fake number 6.
Maybe, I don't know.
There's no way they didn't do that. I think he led him on the helicopter as one like final middle finger to number 6 to show him that he was still in control.
That meme of the guy flipping off the cat and it's like crying. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Replace that with like number 6. No, I don't know. I feel like at that end sequence was like number 6 almost got away. That's how I always read that. And that's why I
read it as number 2 giving him one last middle finger by saying, "Hi, you thought you had it, but just to show you that we've still got the power. Put you on the helicopter and brought you back."
They have the spark. They have the power.
Which Captain Planet element would number 6 be?
Probably fire, because he is really impulsive and just burns out. No, not really. He's a I don't know. I don't know actually.
Well, so
Earth, he's immovable. He won't reveal why he resigned. So
number 6 is going to bed, and he sees his finger, and he sees that the damage caused to his nail has moved up the nail, and he pulls out the picture that number 24 took of 6 and sees the injury to his finger in the picture, and he's like, "Ah, shoot, so I am the real number 6. So then he decides to go accost Curtis while he's sleeping, but not before breaking open the cigarettes, because he remembers all the psychic conditioning now. And he breaks open the cigarettes, and I was a little confused about this, because there's like the white cigarette's like clearly filled with tobacco, but he like breaks open the brown cigarette, which is the one that he allegedly likes according to the mental conditioning, and there was like a wire inside of it, and I didn't like know what kind of was being said here.
Yeah, after 3 watch-throughs of this episode, I have no idea what that is. All I know is that it has something to do with him being realizing that he's a real number 6. So that's enough for me, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that'll have to be enough for me too.
So he does that. He goes and confronts Curtis.
And they fight.
And he learns, he gets the real password out of Curtis, which is Schizoid Man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he uses it to evade Rover. Because right before he confronts Curtis, he's confronted by 2 other people. And he gives the password Gemini, I guess. And they're like, haha, wrong. So they start going at him. But now he has a real password, so when he and Curtis both leave number 6's house, they're confronted by Rover, and number 6 gives the password, whereas Curtis freaks out and runs, causing Rover to kill
Curtis also tries to give him the password, and Rover just ignores it.
Yeah, but I think the reason why I have always thought Rover kills Curtis is that he runs panics, whereas number 6 doesn't.
Except when I was watching the scene, it seemed like he only panicked after Rover didn't accept the Schizoid Man as the code from Curtis as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's
because
probably
he seems very calm and in control, and he says it, and then Rover keeps coming from him, and he says it again, like kind of more panicked, and then Rover's still coming, and then he turns and runs. At least that's how I saw the scene.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe an indication that this was actually all just some massive ploy. Like, even that one that even Curtis fell for. You know, maybe it was a bigger plan.
Rip Curtis.
I don't even know. But number 6 then gets on the phone. He's like, number 6, he's dead.
And 2's like, wow, great, that sucks.
He says, what?
It's really okay. This is the one thing that like I'm hoping the show stops leaning so heavily on, because I actually started to notice it, which means that in 2 weeks, if it keeps happening, it's going to start to get really annoying. That number 6 always has his big revelations at the convenient, very convenient one moment when number 2 is not constantly watching him.
Well, it's all part of the time loop.
It's just incredibly lucky on number 6's part.
Yeah, he's a lucky guy.
Is he?
Yeah, I mean, he got taken to the village. What's luckier than that? You get to live out your days in peace and tranquility, and all you have to do is tell them why you resigned. Look, all I'm saying is if I was in number 6's shoes, I would be glad to be there, glad to reveal why I resigned, glad to lick a few boots along the way, and live out the rest of my days in Port Merion, Wales.
Wales?
Yeah, it's in Wales.
Oh, you said Port Merion. I thought you were saying the village was in Wales, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that too. Because that's what's revealed in episode 17, is that this actually is taking place in Port Merion. No, I'm kidding. I guess that's actually kind of a spoiler to know that it's not. But hey, oh well, I guess.
I mean, a spoiler in the same way that knowing that like 10 is not knowing that the number 10 is not number 1, you know? Like, not in terms of characters, like in terms of the literal numbers, that the number 10 is not the number 1. Like, that's kind of the level of spoiler that you're dealing with.
I guess.
Number 2 has the iconic number 2 scarf on now.
Yeah, looks like it's getting a bit chillier. So, good on him for putting it on.
They mentioned the general.
Yeah, this is come to play, well, next week, obviously, because next week's episode is called The General. So,
yeah. Number
6 says that he'll report everything he's seen to the General, and number 2 is like, what? And number 6 just plays it off real cool, like, well, not to the General, but like, you know what I mean.
Number 2 is like, yeah, sure.
Oh, we didn't mention that when number 6 put Curtis's coat, he found a picture of a woman named Susan, who's Curtis's wife. Lucky that lucky that Susan gave her own husband a picture with her name on it. As if he would like forget, you know? Like,
now, Curtis, I know you have early onset like memory loss problems.
God.
So I've written my name on the back of this photograph. Thanks, Susan.
That's actually a bigger indication of what you were saying before, or like what, or like the idea that maybe this is all just like a bigger ruse, and that Curtis dying was part of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
All just to like have number 6 get into like a gotcha situation, just
with
for the fun
helicopter
of it. Yeah, with how whimsical this number 2 is, I wouldn't be surprised if this was all just a part of a larger plan to be like, gotcha.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either, because that would explain too why they were so sloppy with the mole. Like,
yeah,
maybe he was supposed to figure out that he didn't have the mole, that the mole was fake, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and that's why number 24 even brought it up.
I'm convinced.
I buy it. Sold. I'm buying what I'm selling.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, the ending to this is the most Blake Seven sitcom level ending in existence, because he gets on the helicopter, he puts his blindfold on. See, part of the reason that also convinced me that number 2 knows before number 6 gets on the helicopter is that he tells number 6 to put the blindfold on. And I feel like that's part of the big, like, not letting him know that the helicopter is just going to bring him straight back.
Yeah, but I think he says that's also according to protocol. So I'm pretty sure that like people who come to the village and don't have clearance to know where the village is still have to do that.
I mean, but did we see like Colonel J or Fotheringay put blindfolds on when they left the village?
I mean, I think like there's certain levels of like, some people know where it is and some don't type thing.
I guess. I still think it was him just not letting him know that the helicopter was just going to turn around halfway.
Yeah, could have been.
But then, yeah, it ends on this sitcom-y ending where he takes the blindfold off and number two's just standing there and number two just goes, Susan died a year ago. Smash cut to Patrick McGowan's face slammed behind bars.
Yep. Now that you bring it up, though, like the sitcom ending, in terms of like, if you want to get, I guess, Shakespearean about this, like, the Prisoner, the structure of it is more of a comedy than a tragedy, right? Like, everything, at the end of every episode, everything goes back to how it was before, goes back to the same state it was at the beginning of the episode, and the next episode is just its own thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, why not get Shakespearean since they quote Hamlet in this episode?
Yeah, true.
When they're dueling.
Mm-hmm. So, as to whether this is a win or a lose for number 6, it's a definite loss.
Yeah, definite loss. Sorry, number 6. Not only that, he admits he's number 6.
Yeah.
Oof.
Oh, man. I'm sorry to number 6 for enjoying his suffering.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I feel like that's part of the meta like vibe of this show, of like this show only exists so you can watch this guy like try to escape, but really like you're doing something voyeuristic and terrible.
I mean, I would feel more remorse if 6 was a more likable character, because as it stands, for me, his likability comes from enjoying watching him fail. In fact, literally one of my notes in this episode is halfway through is like, I'm almost actually rooting for number 2 to succeed this week because this plan is just so insane.
I'm rooting. I didn't even realize this until this time through the show, but like I'm pretty much subconsciously on number 2's side for like almost all the episodes, especially like A, B, and C. Like they're in that insane plan. Like I almost just wanted it to work.
Also, the number 2 in A, B, and C was like sweating halfway through because he's like, this isn't gonna work. Someone's gonna have my head for this. Whereas number 6 faces no repercussions because they have to keep him pristine.
They have to keep
because
they have to keep.
There's an implication though, like training him for some bigger purpose. But anyway,
well, they for sure have to keep him like physically and mentally capable enough to admit that why he resigned.
Yeah, but he faces no repercussions. Like every time he escapes, they just bring him back and go, "Ah, 6, you jokester." Whereas, like, imagine if number 2 in this episode was just like, you know what? I'm out, and decided to get on the helicopter and leave. Do you really think they'd bring him back and be like, ha, number 2, you jokester? Or do you think they'd take him into the back alley and put a bullet through his brain? Like,
yeah, that's a good point. God. Anyway,
so
who would you say is number 1 this time around?
I actually think it's going to be someone who didn't directly appear in this episode. I think it's this mysterious general character.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone talks about him/her as if they're some sort of... They talk about them as if they're the guy/woman in charge, you know?
Right.
Number 2 talks about the general heavily to number 6 when he's pretending number 6 is number 12. At the end of the episode when he's talking about how the general will hear of everything that happened today. Like, it just seems like this mysterious general character is number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's going to be my prediction.
Well, my guess is actually number 6, because, you know, if what we were talking about...
Which number 6?
The real number 6. Because if what we were talking about before has any merit, then maybe like number 6, even himself like convinced himself he was number 6, and this is actually number 1.
What if What if his resignation wasn't from some secret agency? It was from the position of number 1 from the village.
And they wiped
And
his
so they
mind.
put him back in the village to find out why he resigned. As number 6 instead of number 1.
And that's why he won't admit he's number 6, because he knows he's number 1.
He's number 1.
And that when he says who is number 1, he's trying to find out who has taken his place as number 1. So he can seek vengeance.
Or he's trying to find out if number 2 knows he's number 1.
Oh, man.
Was number
Oh, my
1.
God. Yeah, what if all the number 2s are in the dark? Oh, my God.
There is an element of the number 2s being in the dark. Like, they don't seem to know what it is that number 6 resigned from either.
No, they don't. I mean, yeah.
That maybe this Leo McKern's number 2 seemed to indicate that it was that he knew number 6 resigned from some sort of spy position, but the other ones and the number 2 in A, B, and C kind of seem to also imply that he knew it was a spy position. But all the other number 2s just like don't seem like they really know what he resigned from.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not even part of their job to know that. They're part of their job is to figure out why, not even what, which is, I guess, interesting.
What if one of the number 2s one week just slips up and instead of asking why did you resign, says what did you resign, and he goes, what? Number 6 is like, what? And they just tells him he was a barber, and number 2 is like, what?
I wish.
We could write our own Prisoner fan fiction. The great thing about the time loop resetting at the end of every episode, or the simulation loop resetting at the end of every episode, is that you can basically just feed in whatever story you want, wherever you want.
Yeah.
As long as it takes place between Arrival and Fallout, because I get the feeling the more you talk about how crazy Fallout is, the more it's going to, like, preclude anything from taking place after it.
Oh, yeah, I think we already knew that. Even the production order has those as number 1 and number 17.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's a spoiler to say that, like, you pretty much can't place anything after Fallout and have it be the same, have it be the same thing where each time it resets and each time it goes back to the beginning type thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe that is a spoiler. I don't know.
No, I don't think it's a spoiler.
Anyway,
I think with a lot of shows, it's kind of assumed to be the norm that the final episode is the final episode that precludes things from taking place afterwards. But anyway,
yeah, even sitcoms do that sometimes, where it's like even though for years it went back to the same position that it started in, every time the final episode has some ending that makes things different.
Yeah, Seinfeld did that.
Oh, did they?
Seinfeld, in the final episode, they get arrested and thrown in jail. And everyone's like, wow, this is the worst ending of the show possible. But really, if you like know what Seinfeld is about, which really is just a show about nothing, like it's actually the perfect ending because it's just such a random event to happen. Because the way they get arrested is like so random and put on, it's just like perfect for the tone of the show. But it like precludes any episodes from taking place after until they get out of jail. Like, they get like a 2 or 3 year sentence or something.
It's like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where they just get arrested by modern cops at the end.
Wow, spoilers.
Oh, you've never watched that movie?
I've only watched through the holy hand grenade sequence like 3 times because every time I try to watch it, I get interrupted.
No. Well, at the end of the movie, modern, like, 20th century cops show up and arrest them.
Wow.
With no explanation.
I read that the reason
as to whether
why they used the coconut horse noises is because they couldn't afford real horses, and one of the actors just like, hey, if you bang 2 coconuts together, it sounds like horses, and they're like, hey, that's really funny, let's use that in the movie.
I've read that too. I don't know if it's just like an urban legend or what.
At this point, is the past really knowable? Probably not.
Torchwood. Check out Trust Your Doctor, a Doctor Who podcast. / now a Torchwood podcast.
Yeah, same universe.
Anyway, I had one quote this week. Isn't everything we do here a betrayal?
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Trying to see if I wrote down a quote.
Who said that, because as I was writing it down, I was like, I don't need to write down who said this. I'm going to remember. And I didn't.
You should have known that was your first mistake. Keon.
It was either number 6 or number 2.
I didn't have any quotes for this week.
But, yeah. But what you do have this week, and what I also have this
10
week... 10
actors?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to start with Terence Feely, who's obviously not an actor, but was the person who wrote this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I looked him up, and he's actually a really big name writer. He wrote for The Saint. He wrote for UFO. He wrote for Avengers. He wrote for Space 1999, Bergerac, and Thunderbirds. And he created a show called The Gentle Touch, which was apparently the first British police drama with a female lead, which came out in 1980, I think.
Progressive.
Yeah, so that's Terence Feely.
So I got Jane Merrow playing 24, but she's named Allison, and she's also credited as Allison, and also most of the town refers to her as Allison. And she's been in quite a few things, actually. She was in the original MacGyver. She was in St. Elsewhere, Magnum P.I., $6 Million Man, UFO, the Mission Impossible television show, The Saint, and The Avengers.
Mm-hmm. She's also in Danger Man.
Yeah, so I have trouble picking out Danger Man from IMDb because sometimes it's credited as Secret Agent, sometimes it's credited as Danger Man, and there doesn't seem to be like any rhyme or reason as to which one they use.
Yeah, it's probably just whichever one the person who updated the page decided to use.
Because like Anton Rodgers, who plays number 2, is credited as being in Secret Agent, but then Earl Cameron, was credited as being in Danger Man. So like,
yeah. Whack. I had Jane Merrow also as being pretty active as a writer recently. She wrote a couple things within the last decade. More than a couple. I think it was like 6 or 7 shows. So that's cool, I guess. And yeah, like you mentioned, Anton Rodgers plays number 2. He was in Danger Man, The Saint. He was in Midsummer Murders. He was in a bunch of other stuff that I didn't recognize as well.
Yeah, he was also apparently a really big stage actor at the time, and would have, from what I read, been well known when he appeared on The Prisoner as like a famous musical actor on stage.
Mm-hmm.
In Britain, he would have been well known.
Yeah.
And then Earl Cameron, who in A Strange Twist of Fate actually just passed away 2 weeks ago when we were recording this.
Oh, what?
July 3rd, 2020.
Wow.
He was in Inception, which is like I think his second to last acting credit. He was also in Thunderball, Casualty. He played Williams in The 10th Planet on Doctor Who.
Wow.
He was also in Danger Man. And that's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got in general. I didn't have any
I've got
in general.
One more, which is David Netheim. For some reason, I didn't write down who he's actually credited as, but I think it was one of the Doctor, I think.
Uh-huh.
And he was in The Avengers. He was in Doctor Who. He played Federin in Enemy of the World. He was in Z-Cars, The Saint, The Baron, and that's what I had him in.
Cool.
The actress who played one of the nurses, this was like her one and only, not her only acting credit, but one of like 3.
Sweet. Maybe she was a real nurse. They just got her to play a nurse on TV.
This is the first story we've had that didn't have someone die suspiciously close to the airing of the episode.
Yeah, but it did have someone die suspiciously close to when we watched it.
I guess. And that's all I have, just in general.
In general?
Wow. If you'd like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decorative.com. Questions, comments, concerns, anger, rants, love letters, your thoughts on the Schizoid Man. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify, all at Inevitable, a classic sci-fi podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you like the show.
Check us out on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. Next time we're going to be watching The General, but until then, the end.